I mean, you cannot sugarcoat this. This was a blowout. And it wasn't just New Jersey and Virginia. Local races in Connecticut, statewide races in Georgia, county races in Pennsylvania. This was an epic blowout. This was a bloodbath for the Republican Party.
Pretty much 100% across the board, or Hundo P.
As much as I would like to say the Democrats did it, I think I should say that what prevailed was Mom Donnie's populist message. And if you think about the 90s, there was this term that was thrown around in the 90s. Some of you young folks might not remember it, but basically it's the economy stupid, and healthcare costs, affordability, college. If only this was the midterms, ladies and gentlemen. But at the end of the day, this came down to Mom Donnie going outside the bounds of APAC and the political marauders that hoard the Democrats by just simply putting the message on, I worry about my people more than I worry about what is going on in Israel. That's it, Democrats. That's it. And start going more to the left in terms of socialism. A famous Republican once said, people, we can't give the American people stuff because if we give them stuff, they'll like it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the same thing about corporations, which is why they are dominating so much right now, because the government continues to give them stuff and they are not giving back as much stuff to the American people as they should. Instead, what happens with them is that they get a come up from the government, and then when they get that money from the government is able to say, well, inflation must go up because there's too many dollars in the market. Problem is, the dollars that got floated out into the market, they didn't go to the hands of the middle class and poor. It went to the very businesses that now are allowed to increase the rates of their goods because they got money from the government. See how that works? And it doesn't help the average person out. But this was a resounding victory for the Democrats. And I think it's safe to say that there is no damn ketchup bottles that lasted or survived through the night in the White House. Literally. I don't think anything happened good in that White House. And in this video, you're going to hear a Republican strategist just break down about how Republicans got shellacked. And this should also be telling Republicans that this government shutdown, it is all on them because this happened during the shutdown. So ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe to my channel. Enjoy this clip from CNN. Let me know how you feel about everything that went on last night. And let me leave you with one more thing before we get to the clip. This is Donald Trump. Trump said he's going to announce he will stop funding New York City if they vote Democrat. Do y'all think he's really about to go through with that? And this is what he posted on his live social. At the end of the day, people, New York doesn't need the government's funding. Hell, New York, cities like California, cities like LA and states like California, states like New York, they provide more funding than the top 20 red states. So all New York has got to do is get in cahoots with California and say, government, we're not giving you a damn penny if you start trying to withhold money from blue states. And that'll put an end to that bull job. Please subscribe, follow me on beacons.ai, Politics of Being Black. Enjoy the crying of a Republican strategist.
With us now, an all New Jersey panel, Democratic strategist Julie Roginsky and Republican strategist Mike DuHaime. In an off-year election like this, there are dangers of over-interpreting the results and also under-interpreting. So instead of making you choose, I think I'm going to give you a chance to do both, right? So over-interpret what we saw in New Jersey and Virginia, because actually I think it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, the over-interpretation of this is that this is a permanent majority that Democrats will be able to keep. And what you saw, at least in New Jersey, I have to look at the numbers in Virginia, is there are cohorts of voters who came out very strongly for Mikey Sherrill, who are not necessarily Democratic voters anymore, specifically the Latino community, which Democrats, I think, for many, many years used to take for granted. You cannot take that community for granted anymore. They performed for her last night. They did not perform for Kamala Harris last time, and Democrats better make sure that they deliver for that community in a real and meaningful way to keep that community in the tent. That's just one example of a community.
An overinterpretation would be, Democrats have Latinos back.
We don't have Latinos.
Right, but that's the concern. You could
right.
read this, and let me just show what people you meet. Passaic County, which has got the largest population of Hispanics in the state. Passaic County, Mikey Sherrill won 57-42, so a 15-point spread in Passaic County. You're like, oh, it's largely Hispanic. This is New Jersey. You would think that this would always be the case. Donald Trump won this county by about 3 points just last year. So Mike DuHaime, again, overinterpret these results.
I grew up in Passaic County, so I know that area very well. I think the overinterpretation is Democrats looking at this and saying, oh, we're going to sweep everything next year. We're going to get back the U.S. Senate. We're going to win back all these governor's races. I think in reality, what you learned last night was where Donald Trump is strong is unique to him. He has some downside, certainly, and we saw that last night. But I think the overinterpretation would be, hey, we're going to sail forward, whether we have a socialist in New York or more centrist candidates in New Jersey and Virginia. I think you really have to look state by state and district by district.
So what's the underinterpretation, though? Because maybe the White House is waking up and saying, this isn't our problem. We just had weak candidates in this state.
Yeah, the underinterpretation is when you lose by double digits in both these states, it certainly says something. When Republicans have won New Jersey in the past and Virginia, 2009 presaged a big year for Republicans in 2010, 1993 presaged 1994, Republicans taking back the House. I mean, you cannot sugarcoat this. This was a blowout. And it wasn't just New Jersey and Virginia. Local races in Connecticut, statewide races in Georgia, county races in Pennsylvania. This was an epic blowout. This was a bloodbath for the Republican
Pretty
Party.
much 100% across the board, or hundo P, as my 18-year-old boys would say. This was like a hundo P night for Democrats. So all the Sherrill people and people close to the Sherrill campaign last night, I kept on asking them, what's the lesson for Democrats going forward? And what they said is, look at the combination that we ran on. We ran against Donald Trump and we held him up because he's deeply unpopular in this state, but we kept on tying him to the economy and affordability. And when you do both, that puts Democrats in a better position.
Look, they're probably going to take exception to this, but there's not much difference between the campaign, not the quality of the campaign, but the messaging that Zohran Mamdani ran here in New York, Mikey Sherrill ran in New Jersey, Abigail Spanberger ran in Virginia. All of it was tied to the issue of affordability. All of that was pointing out that Donald Trump made a whole lot of promises that got him elected last year that he's not kept. And I think what you saw was anger from the voters and saying, listen, Mr. President, we gave you a chance. You said you were going to lower prices. You said you were going to make our lives better. And the reality is we're struggling more than ever. And so that's the kind of message that I think you see both from somebody like Zohran Mamdani and Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill, who probably don't think they have much in common with each other. At least the two governors don't think they have much in common with the mayor of New York. But the reality is very much laser focused, as Mike pointed out, on the economy, on an affordability message. If I were the Republicans today, I would take very, very, very strong heed of that. And I would say we need to deliver quickly, because if we don't deliver, we control everything. And that's not going to bode well for us next year.
I think Democrats nominated a centrist in New Jersey who ran on a bio that stuck her squarely in the center of the electorate. She did not fall into the trap of going too far to the left on these progressive issues. And when you basically can stay in the center or center left as a Democrat in a blue state, you're going to win. If you get caricatured as a far left Democrat, you can lose even a blue state. But I think the Sherrill campaign did a very good job of keeping her centered, not going too far to the left, and letting Donald Trump essentially motivate both sides. But in New Jersey, there's a lot more Democrats than Republicans.
10 seconds each. We're a year minus 1 day for the midterms. If you're a Republican this morning, how nervous are you?
I look at it and say, hey, get prepared to lose the House unless some crazy redistricting. We probably keep the Senate because of the map, but you should be worried.
Flip it over. How excited should Democrats be?
Democrats should be excited. Democrats now, especially if you're somebody like a Mikey Sherrill, Abigail Spanberger, certainly if you're Zohran Mamdani, you need to deliver quickly. I mean, people put their faith in you that you're going to make their quality of life better. You're going to make the economy better for them. You're going to make life affordable. You need to deliver quickly. And Democrats need to think about how that message communicates next year in House races. They need to paint Republicans as the people who are causing the pain, which they can because they control everything.
Julie Roginsky, Mike DuHaime, I've been in New Jersey for 2 days. I've heard a lifetime's worth of Bruce Springsteen. I need a break. Thank you very much for that.
Going to bring in now Ken Martin, chairman of the Democratic National Committee. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Audie. Thanks for having me. It's a great day to be a Democrat.
Well, the pressure is on, though, for you in particular, because all of us can talk and interpret, but you actually have to put money behind your interpretations. So when you look at the moderates who won, and then you look at this big win in New York City for a Democratic socialist, how do you bridge that gap?
Well, look, I mean, last night was really interesting, of course, and what it proved is what I've said all along in my time leading in Minnesota and now at the DNC, that we are a big tent coalition. There's no one way to be a Democrat, right? We win through addition, not subtraction. We win by bringing in new voices with new ideas, right? But as much as people want to focus on the differences within the Democratic Party, of course, we have conservative Democrats, centrists, progressives, and leftists. The reality is there was a lot that all of these candidates had in common last night, right? There was a through line, and the through line is that all three candidates, Zoran Mamdani, Abigail Spanberger, and Mikey Sherrill, were focused on kitchen table issues, not on gilded ballrooms. They were focused on affordability. How do you actually bring down the cost of goods? How do you actually bring down the cost of people's mortgage and rent and the cost of childcare and on, all the things that are creating anxiety within the American people who are just want a champion, want someone to focus on their economic future. And that's what Democrats did. I also think the wrong lesson last night, I know there was anti-Trump sentiment in this country, but it really takes away from the fact that the other thing all three of those candidates had in common is they ran for something. They ran on a positive agenda of how they would actually make a difference in people's lives. And so,
Ken Martin,
look,
I want to jump in here because also you have people, maybe it's David Hogg, maybe it's Stacey Abrams. There are going to be people out there who are going to put their chips on certain kinds of candidates. And are you, as AOC said at the top of this show, denying the future by not embracing some of these candidates farther left?
The idea of the DNC not embracing candidates in the Democratic Party is just inaccurate. As I just mentioned, the way I led in Minnesota is through a big tent approach. There's no one way or one stripe of being a Democrat, right? We are a coalition party, and that means you win through addition, not subtraction. That means we welcome all candidates that run. It's not up to me to put my finger on the scale and decide which candidates we will support. That's up to the primary voters, which is why, by the way, I endorsed Zoran Mamdani the night that he won and was proud to support him. Unlike other Democratic leaders, I will tell you this, we are actually building a big tent. We understand that in this country, we need different types of Democrats to win in different spaces. And all of them bring different ideas. But no one should confuse unanimity with unity in this party. And what do I mean by that? Of course, we're in this big tent coalition, we're going to have a difference of ideas and opinions on how to accomplish things. But what we share in terms of unity is that we all have the same goals. Our goals are to lower healthcare costs and to make sure people have access to healthcare. Our goals are to make sure.
I want to jump in here just because I want to have time to ask you about Prop 50 in California. I just want to play for you a little bit what Governor Newsom had to say in explaining that victory.
Prop 50 is not about drawing lines on a map. It is about holding the line to what makes us who we are. Donald Trump is nothing more than weakness masquerading as strength. Why else do you need to make a phone call to Greg Abbott in the middle of the midterm redistricting unless you're weak?
This turned out to be quite a boon for California Democrats. They were able to raise a ton of money off of this issue. And then you had Newsom coming out, kind of giving us 2028 vibes in his speech. So I want to know from you, do you think blue states, so to speak, need to get in on this, get into this conversation about redistricting? Are we looking at an escalating redistricting war?
Well, certainly, as we've said, what happened in California was the counterpunch to Texas and Greg Abbott bending the knee to Donald Trump. And so now we've leveled the playing field. And now it's up to Republicans. If they continue with this nonsense and continue going down this road of trying to redistrict, unconstitutionally redistrict in Republican-controlled states, we're going to meet them state by state. They wanted this fight. They created this fight, right? And we're going to meet them. This is not your grandfather's Democratic Party where we're going to play with one hand behind our back. We are actually fighting back. I'm proud of Governor Newsom and Californians for sending a message. My hope now is that it creates a chilling effect for the Republicans, and they realize that we're going to meet them each and every step of the way, whether it's in Virginia, whether it's in New York, whether it's in Illinois, whether it's in other states throughout the country. We will meet them with fire. And I'm just, we're not playing around anymore on this. And I'm glad that Governor Newsom stood up and said what he is, because Donald Trump is a weak man. And the fact is, he knows he's going to lose. Last night is a clear example of that. And the only way they can win in 2026 is rigging the maps and changing the rules midstream. And we're not going to allow them to do that.